Welcome to the deep dive. You know we love to go deep on your requests, and today is no different. We're diving into some seriously cool, advanced English vocab and idioms.
That's right.
I know, right? And you listeners gave us some great sources to work with for this one.
Uh-huh.
We've got excerpts from Advanced English Vocabulary and Idioms. And test your advanced English vocabulary 15 words.
It's going to be like a cheat sheet to sounding smarter, you know?
Totally. Like, are we all about being blunt now to get ahead?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Right. And blithe spending. Sounds fun, but maybe not the wisest move.
Okay, so what's fascinating to me here is we're not just, defining words, but we're really looking at what they tell us about communication today.
Yeah.
What's valued? Like you said, is bluntness the key to success now?
Exactly. And speaking of how we learn today, that 15-word source uses a quiz format. What's that all about?
I think it totally reflects this whole competitive learning thing that's happening.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
People want to test themselves, see where they stand, like a scorecard,
It's very gamified learning.
Right. And advanced English vocabulary and idioms even mentions this is tied to professional development.
Makes sense.
Like strong communication is a huge asset in any field.
Okay, so it's not just about sounding smart at parties.
Right.
It's about getting ahead. I'm in. Hit me with word number one.
All right. Word number one, it's value.
Okay.
It's straightforward enough, right? It's worth usefulness, what you can trade something for.
Mm-hmm.
The video gives the example of cars losing value over time.
I actually thought that was kind of clever, It makes you picture that brand new car turning into a clunker.
Yeah, exactly. It helps the word stick.
Okay, so what about sustain? How do they make us remember that one?
Marathon runners needing to sustain their energy.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that taps into a universal experience.
Yeah, we've all had to, dig deep and keep going,
Whether it's physical or mental, we've got to sustain that effort.
Very true. Kind of like this deep dive feeling, that sustained interest. Okay, what's next?
Various, meaning different, several types. They use the example of a supermarket having various kinds of food.
Okay, various, pretty basic, but do you think people overlook it?
Interesting point. Maybe they could use more specific descriptive words sometimes.
Yeah, like instead of just saying various, you could say, I don't know, eclectic or diverse or something.
You're totally right. It's like having the right tool for the job,
Totally. It's like having a whole spice rack instead of just salt and pepper.
Right.
Okay, hit me with the next word.
Right. It's emphasize.
No.
To give something special importance.
Hmm.
Example, teacher emphasizing studying before an exam.
Oh, I've had those teachers. You know the ones who turn red when they emphasize a point? Makes you pay attention?
Exactly.
So is this next one as dramatic?
Well, this one is typical, meaning ordinary, usual. And they actually use the idiom, same old, to illustrate a typical day.
Ooh, same old, same old. That's perfect. Like you hear it and you instantly know what they mean.
Right. It paints such a vivid picture.
It's funny how those little idioms can do that.
Yeah. And they can add humor or personality to your language too.
Which I'm sure we'll talk more about when we get to the idioms and slang part.
Oh, definitely. We've got some good stuff coming up.
Okay, but for now, we're sticking with individual words. We've done 5 so far. What do you think, listeners? Ready for the next batch? Because this is where it gets really interesting.
Things are about to get juicy.
Buckle up.
Word number 6 is blunt.
Oh, yeah, blunt. Now, that's a word that can, leave a mark.
For sure.
The video talks about it as being direct, straightforward, even if it might upset others. It's like honesty on steroids.
Yeah, but there's got to be a line between blunt and just plain rude, don't you think?
Totally. So how do you know when it's okay to be blunt and when to maybe tone it down?
That's where context comes in.
Yeah.
It's not just the words themselves, but how you say them, who you're talking to, the whole situation. Have you ever, listener, been told you were too harsh, even when you thought you were just being honest?
Ooh, yeah, you think you're being helpful, but it comes across all wrong.
Classic blunt dilemma.
Right. So how do you find that balance?
That's the art of communication, isn't it? Understanding your audience, reading the room.
And choosing your words carefully.
Exactly. Sometimes a scalpel is better than a hammer.
Ooh, I like that analogy. It's so true.
All right, ready for the next word?
Hit me.
It's consequence.
Okay.
A result, often a negative one, that follows an action or decision.
Uh-huh.
And they use the example of skipping class and then failing as a consequence.
Ooh, yeah, I can relate to that one.
A classic cause and effect scenario.
Skipping class was always tempting, but failing, not so much. It makes you think about all the little choices we make and how they can add up.
The butterfly effect.
Yeah.
One small action leading to a whole chain of events.
Exactly. So we got to be mindful of our words and actions.
Think about the consequences, both good and bad.
For sure. All right, what's next?
Next up is strain. To exert a lot of effort, which can lead to stress or even pain. They give the example of straining your back lifting heavy boxes.
Okay, so that's a very literal example.
Right?
But I feel like strain can also be mental or emotional.
Absolutely. That feeling of being stretched to your limit.
Oh, yeah, when you're working on a tough project and you can feel the pressure building.
Totally. It can be physical or mental.
I think we've all been there at some point. What's our next word?
Next, we have authentic, meaning genuine, real, not a copy.
Okay.
The example is an art expert confirming a painting is authentic.
I like how that idea of authenticity applies to so many things.
Right.
Authentic experiences, authentic connections.
Authentic food, even.
Exactly. But in a world where anything can be faked, how do you even know what's real anymore?
It's a great question. It's like we need to develop that inner BS detector.
Totally. Like we need an authenticity app for our brains or something.
That would be handy, wouldn't it?
Okay, let's keep going. What's the last word in this set?
All right, last one for this round. It's evolve, meaning to change gradually over time, often becoming more complex.
Okay.
The example they give is how information technology has evolved so rapidly since the 1980s.
Makes sense. And speaking of evolving, isn't it interesting how language itself is always evolving too?
Oh, for sure. New words popping up all the time, old words getting new meanings.
It's like language is alive.
It really is. And that's why we got to keep learning, keep expanding that vocab.
Otherwise, we're going to get left behind.
Exactly.
So there you have it, folks. 10 words down from the 15 words source.
How are we feeling? Smarter already.
Let's keep the momentum going with the next 5.
Okay, so ready for more of these awesome words.
Hit me with them.
All right, word number 11 is blithe.
Blythe.
Yeah, meaning cheerfully unconcerned, carefree, often when maybe a little caution would be wiser.
Okay, so like that friend who's always whistling even when things are falling apart?
Exactly. The video actually uses the example of someone blithely spending money when they're almost broke. Not the smartest move.
Yeah, not a great financial strategy.
Definitely not. I think, Blythe has a bit of a warning sign attached to it.
A little reminder to maybe think things through a bit more.
Right. Sometimes a little worry can be a good thing.
I guess that's true. Okay, so what about this next word? Any hidden warnings there?
Well, this one's all about clarity or a lack of it. It's ambiguous,
Ambiguous.
meaning open to more than one interpretation, not having a clear meaning.
Ooh, I run into that one all the time.
Really?
Yeah, like trying to decipher instructions for putting together furniture.
Oh, I've been there.
Or have you ever gotten into an argument because you interpreted a text message totally differently than the sender intended?
Oh, so frustrating.
The worst.
The video mentions a student having to ask for clarification because the essay instructions are ambiguous.
Oh, that's a good example. Imagine if they hadn't spoken up.
Right. They could have written a whole essay on the wrong topic.
That's a nightmare. So being able to spot ambiguity and ask for clarification, that's huge.
It's crucial for good communication.
All right, what's next on our list?
Next, we have facilitate.
Facilitate.
Okay. It means to make something easier or more efficient.
Ooh, I like that one. Anything that makes life easier, I'm all for it.
Right. The video talks about new software facilitating communication among team members.
So, streamlining things.
Exactly. Makes me think about all the tools and technologies we have these days to boost productivity, make things run smoothly.
Yeah, we're all about efficiency in today's world.
Definitely. But I wonder, do we ever lose something in that rush to optimize everything? Huh. What do you think, listener? Do you ever feel like you need to slow down?
That's a great question. I like that. Sometimes slow and steady wins the race, right?
Exactly.
Okay, on to the next word.
It's succinct,
Okay, succinct.
meaning brief and clear, getting straight to the point.
Ooh, that's what I need to work on.
Really?
I tend to be a rambler. My emails are probably way too long.
Well, we all have our things,
That's true. But yeah, being succinct, that's a valuable skill.
especially these days.
With so much information coming at us all the time,
People appreciate clear and concise messaging.
it's like the digital age version of time is money.
It's a good way to put it.
So, what's our last word for this set?
It is eschew.
Eschew. Now, there's a word you don't hear every day.
I know, right?
What kind of example did they use for that one?
They talk about someone eschewing social media to focus on studying for med school.
Wow, that's some serious dedication.
Right, not just taking a break, but completely avoiding it.
Yeah, it takes willpower to eschew something that's so ingrained in our culture.
Definitely. It makes you think, what are some things in your life, listener, that you might want to eschew?
Ooh, good question.
Any habits or distractions holding you back?
Food for thought, for sure. So, we've now gone through all 15 words from Test Your Advanced English Vocabulary.
We did it. Feeling smarter.
Well, we're not done yet, right? We still have those insights from advanced vocabulary and idioms to dig into.
Oh, yeah, there's more.
So, we touched on the competitive learning thing, the link to professional development,
Hmm.
but this source also highlights how these words point to a preference for direct and nuanced communication.
It's true. It's not just about having a big vocabulary, it's about understanding how language reflects our values.
Yeah, like what we care about as a society.
Exactly.
So, how do those words like blunt, succinct, and even ambiguous fit into that?
Well, blunt shows a desire for honesty, straightforwardness, even if it's not always tactful.
Hmm, interesting.
The six highlights that clear and concise messaging is important when time is precious.
Makes sense.
And with ambiguous, well, being able to deal with ambiguity, that's key for good communication anywhere.
It's like each word gives us a peek into how we think and interact.
I like that little window into our minds.
Okay, so we've talked individual words, their cultural context. What else does advanced vocabulary and idioms have for us?
There's one more element I think we should explore, the role of idioms and slang in everyday talk.
Ooh, idioms. Those are fun. They add so much flavor to language. Like, remember, same old as an example of typical.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
So simple, but it instantly gives you that feeling of routine.
And that's what idioms do so well. They pack a lot of meaning into a few words, often in a humorous way, too.
Totally. So, what other examples do they give?
Well, they mention, in other words, as a super useful idiom for paraphrasing, clarifying meaning.
Oh, yeah. In other words, like a bridge between two ways of saying the same thing.
Exactly, making sure everyone's on the same page.
Okay, and what about slang? That's got to be in there somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. They point out how the shortened form vocab is becoming more and more common.
Vocab. Oh, yeah. I use that all the time. It's so much faster than saying vocabulary.
Right. But does that make us lazy language users? What do you think?
Hmm. Good question. Is it laziness or just adapting to how we communicate today?
That's a debate linguists are always having.
I can imagine. So, is slang good or bad?
It's more about how language is always evolving, finding new ways to express itself.
Like with vocab, it's about efficiency, fitting in.
Exactly.
So maybe we shouldn't judge slang too harshly.
It's just language doing its thing, adapting, evolving, connecting us.
I like that. Okay, so we've covered a lot today, from individual words to cultural insights to idioms and slang. But before we wrap up, I have one more question for you. Of all the words we've talked about today, which ones do you think will have like the biggest impact on the future of how we communicate?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's almost like we're trying to predict the future of language itself.
I know, right?
But if I had to choose a few, I'd say authentic, evolve, and maybe even ambiguous.
Interesting. Why those specific words?
Well, think about it. In a world that's becoming more and more virtual, driven by AI, the things that'll really matter are genuine human connection, being able to adapt to constant change, and knowing how to handle information that's not always clear, like
Yeah.
navigating all that complexity.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's like being able to spot what's authentic when we're surrounded by so much digital stuff and being willing to evolve our thinking as new information comes out and not getting tripped up by ambiguity. Those are like essential skills for the future.
Exactly. And those words also point to the importance of strong critical thinking
Yeah.
skills. It's something we haven't directly talked about, but it's been there throughout our whole conversation.
So true. It's like learning these words isn't just about adding to your vocabulary, it's about expanding how you think. It's about becoming a better communicator, someone who's more discerning, adaptable, and thoughtful.
You got it. And that's what really makes your communication more powerful. You can express yourself more clearly, connect with people on a deeper level, and make a real difference.
I love that. So, to all of you listening out there, think about these words: authentic, evolve, ambiguous. Where do you see them in your own life? How can understanding them better help you navigate this crazy complex world we live in?
And even beyond those specific words, always remember this: language is power.
Ooh, good one.
The words you choose, they shape your thoughts, influence others, and ultimately, they help create the reality you want.
That's powerful stuff. So choose your words wisely, use them boldly, and keep exploring this amazing world of language. It's always changing and growing.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into advanced English vocabulary and
We
idioms.
covered a lot today.
We did. Hope you all enjoyed it. Until next time, happy wordsmithing.